Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and watched the massive alien station grow larger on the screen. His heart beat fast. After 300 years of searching, humanity had finally found other intelligent life. The station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. It spun slowly in space around a blue planet. "Sir, we're getting a signal," said Lieutenant Danny Brooks from his position at the communications console. "They're speaking English." Jake raised his eyebrows. "English? How is that possible?" "They say they learned our language from our radio signals. They've been watching us for decades." Dr. Lisa Parker stepped forward from her science station. She was the best alien expert Earth had, even though she had never seen a real alien before today. "This is amazing, Commander. They must be incredibly advanced to decode our language so quickly." The voice came through the speakers, deep and strange but speaking clear English. "Human vessel Horizon's Edge, you are welcome at Council Station. Prime, we have been waiting for this moment for a long time. Please dock at Bay 7. The Galactic Council is ready to meet with your species." Jake felt a mix of excitement and worry. "Understood, Council Station. We're honored to be here." As their ship moved toward the docking bay, Jake could see other alien ships. Some looked like metal sea creatures with tentacles. Others were sharp and angular like crystals. One ship seemed to be made of living wood with branches for weapons. "Look at all those different designs," whispered Lisa. "Each one must be from a different alien race." Colonel Amy Foster, their military advisor, stood with her arms crossed. She was not as excited as the others. "Something feels wrong about this, Commander. Why would they be so ready for us? How did they know we were coming?" "Maybe they're just friendly," said Danny, but his voice showed he was not sure either. The docking process was smooth. The aliens had built the bay to fit human ships perfectly. Too perfectly, Amy thought. As they prepared to leave the ship, Jake gathered his team. "Remember, we represent all of humanity today. Dr. Parker, you'll handle the science questions. Danny, you're our cultural expert. Amy, stay alert but don't look threatening. This could change everything for our species." They walked through a tunnel that connected their ship to the station. The air smelled strange, like metal and flowers mixed together. The gravity felt normal, which surprised Lisa. Everything seemed designed for humans. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber with a high ceiling that showed the stars outside. 12 different aliens stood waiting for them. Jake had never imagined such strange creatures could exist. The largest alien stepped forward. It looked like a giant lizard walking on 2 legs, with scales that changed color from green to gold. Its eyes were cold and intelligent. "I am Chancellor Zextal of the Vorthok people," the creature said with a voice like grinding stone. "I speak for the Galactic Council. Welcome to our domain, humans." Jake stepped forward and tried to look confident. "I'm Commander Jake Morrison, representing the United Earth government. We're grateful for this opportunity to meet." "Your gratitude is noted," Zextal said. "Let me introduce you to the council members." One by one, the aliens came forward. There was General Krathmer, who looked like a giant insect with 4 arms and compound eyes. Admiral Yexstar appeared to be made of water held in a transparent suit. Others looked like walking trees, floating crystals, and things Jake could not even describe. "Your species is very young," said Zextal as they walked through the station. "We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We bring order, peace, and progress to all intelligent life." "That sounds wonderful," said Lisa. "We've always hoped to find others who shared our values." The lizard alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Values? How amusing. You will learn our ways soon enough." They entered a great hall where thousands of other beings watched from galleries above. Jake felt like he was in a courtroom. The 12 council members took their places on a high platform. "Human delegation," Zextal announced. The Galactic Council has decided to grant your species membership in our great alliance. Jake felt a moment of joy, but something in the alien's tone made him careful. What would membership involve? You will be classified as a Tier 7 servitor species, said General Krathmer, clicking his mandibles. This is a great honor for such a primitive race. Amy stepped closer to Jake and whispered servitor. That sounds like servant, Zexthal continued, as if he had not heard. Your people will provide labor for council projects. Your warriors will serve in our armies. Your scientists will work under council supervision. In return, we will protect you and guide your development. The hall was silent. Jake felt the weight of every human life on his shoulders, and if we prefer a different arrangement, perhaps equal partnership. The silence stretched longer. Then, Zexthal's scales turned deep red. Equal partnership. With a species that has barely left its home system. You understand nothing of galactic civilization. We understand freedom, Jake said quietly. We understand that all intelligent beings have the right to choose their own path. Admiral Yextar's watery form bubbled with what sounded like anger. No newly contacted species has ever refused council membership. It is unthinkable. Then maybe it's time someone thought it, Amy said, her hand moving closer to her weapon. The tension in the hall was thick. Jake could feel the eyes of thousands of aliens watching them. He knew his next words would change human history forever. We thank the council for their offer, Jake said in a steady voice, but humanity must decline. We seek friendship in trade, not servitude. The council members looked at each other in shock. Zexthal's eyes glowed with fury. No species refuses the council. You will reconsider. How long do we have? Jake asked. 1 galactic standard year, Zexthal hissed. Submit, or face the consequences of your arrogance. As the human delegation was escorted back to their ship, Jake could hear the angry voices of the council behind them. He had hoped for friendship among the stars. Instead, he had found masters who expected slaves. The Horizon's Edge pulled away from the station. As they prepared for the long journey home, Lisa looked back at the alien structure. What have we done? She whispered. What we had to, Jake replied. Now we go home and prepare for war. President Helen Carter sat at the head of the long table in the emergency council room deep beneath Washington. The faces around her showed worry and fear. Jake Morrison had returned 3 days ago with news that changed everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and their new neighbors wanted slaves. Tell me again what we're facing, Helen said to Admiral Rick Hayes, the head of Earth's space fleet. Rick stood and activated the holographic display. Based on Commander Morrison's report, the Council has 12 different alien species. Each one is more advanced than us. They have faster ships, better weapons, and they've been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Secretary of State Mary Johnson shook her head. There has to be a diplomatic solution. Maybe we misunderstood their offer. I was there, Jake said from his chair. There was no misunderstanding. They see us as useful animals, nothing more. Dr. Elena Ross, Earth's top military strategist, had been quiet during most of the meeting. Now she spoke up. What exactly did they tell you about their military? They didn't give details, Jake replied. But General Krathmer mentioned that no species had ever refused them before. That suggests they've conquered everyone they've met. Or everyone was smart enough to surrender, Mary added. General Pete Clark, Elena's partner in military planning, leaned forward. What's our timeline? 1 galactic year, Jake said. We think that's about 14 Earth months. Helen looked around the table. Options. Admiral Hayes spoke first. We start building ships immediately. Every shipyard, every factory. We'll need hundreds of vessels to have any chance. With what resources? Asked Treasury Secretary Bob Miller. The defense budget can't handle a military buildup of that size. Then we change the budget, Helen said firmly. If we don't have a military, we won't need an economy. Alina had been studying reports on her tablet. I disagree with the Admiral's approach. Building traditional warships will take too long, and they'll still be inferior to Council technology. What do you suggest? Helen asked. Asymmetric warfare. We can't match their technology, but we can fight in ways they don't expect. From Commander Morrison's description, these aliens think in very organized, predictable patterns, meaning they probably fight the same way they negotiate, formal, structured, following rules. Humans don't always follow rules. Rick looked offended. Are you suggesting we can't win in direct combat? I'm suggesting we don't try, Alina replied. We use our advantages, creativity, adaptability, and the fact that they underestimate us. Meanwhile, far from Earth, the Council was already putting their plan into action. Chancellor Zextol had called it the Terran Domestication Protocol. The Council believed humans would surrender quickly once they saw the hopelessness of resistance. General Krathmer deployed the first phase, monitoring stations. Small, automated platforms appeared near human colonies and trade routes. They watched everything humans did and reported back to the Council fleet. Admiral Yekstar was confident the operation would be simple. These humans have crude, nuclear weapons and slow chemical rockets. Our ships can destroy their entire fleet from beyond the range of their guns. Do not underestimate any species, warned Counselor Veltar of the crystal-like resonance people. The humans showed unusual boldness in refusing our offer. Boldness born of ignorance, Krathmer clicked. Once they see our power, they will beg for the servitor status we offered. The Council's intelligence reports painted humans as a weak, disorganized species. They had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. Their population was small compared to established galactic civilizations. They had never fought a space war. What the reports missed was harder to measure. They didn't account for human stubbornness, ingenuity, or the way humans could work together when threatened. The Council had ruled for so long that they had forgotten what a cornered animal could do. On Earth, the military buildup began immediately, but Alina Ross was already thinking differently. She called together a secret team of strategists, engineers, and former Special Forces soldiers. We're not going to build a fleet to match theirs, she told the group. We're going to build weapons they won't see coming. Captain Steve Bennett, recently promoted after surviving a pirate attack, was part of Elena's team. What did you have in mind? Stealth ships. Small, fast, hard to detect. We load them with nuclear weapons and AI pilots. One ship, one target. Suicide missions? Asked Colonel Amy Foster, who had returned from the alien station with Jake. Unmanned suicide missions. We build them cheap and fast. For every traditional warship the Council expects us to build, we build 50 stealth bombers. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. While Admiral Hayes continued building conventional ships to keep up appearances, Elena's secret project began in hidden facilities around the solar system. Dr. Lisa Parker, now working as a xenobiology consultant, provided crucial information about Council species. The Vorthok, like Chancellor Zextol, are cold-blooded. They think slowly in low temperatures. The hive species, like General Krathmer, are communal. Disrupt their communication, and they become confused. What about their technology? Asked Alina. Very advanced, but also very standardized. They all use similar power sources, communication methods, computer systems. That could be a weakness. Alina smiled for the first time in days. If they all use the same systems, they all have the same vulnerabilities. She turned to Lieutenant Kate Morgan, a computer specialist. How good are our hackers? The best in human space. Why? Because we're going to turn their own technology against them. 3 months after first contact, the Council made their first aggressive move. A small human research station called New Horizon was conducting mining operations in the outer system. It had 800 people, including families. The Council attack fleet, led by Admiral Yexter, approached the defenseless station. They had no intention of negotiating. "Attention human facility," came the broadcast. "You are in violation of Council space. Surrender immediately." Captain Steve Bennett, who happened to be visiting the station, responded. "This is Captain Bennett of the Earth Defense Force. You're in human space. Please state your intentions." "Our intentions," Yextar replied, "are to demonstrate the cost of defying the Council." The alien ships opened fire without warning. The research station had no weapons, no shields, no defenses. It was destroyed in minutes. 847 people died, including 112 children. Captain Bennett's escape pod was the only survivor. As he watched the station burn, he activated his emergency beacon and began broadcasting. "This is Captain Steve Bennett. The aliens have attacked New Horizon. They killed everyone. Families, children, scientists who never hurt anyone. They burned our children to make a point." The message reached Earth in 6 hours. By the end of the day, every human in the solar system had seen the footage. The attack had the opposite effect the Council intended. Instead of fear, it created rage. Instead of surrender, it created determination. President Carter addressed the world that evening. "The Council demands servants. They will find warriors instead." Admiral Hayes immediately accelerated the conventional fleet construction. A secret project moved into overdrive. But most importantly, something changed in the human spirit. They were no longer just defending their freedom. They were seeking justice for 847 innocent people who had died to satisfy alien arrogance. The Council had made their first mistake. They had given humanity something more powerful than any weapon, a reason to fight that went beyond survival. In his command center, General Krathmer reviewed the attack reports with satisfaction. The demonstration was effective. The humans will surely surrender now. But intelligence reports from Earth showed the opposite. Humans were mobilizing for war. Factory production had increased dramatically. Military recruitment was at record levels. "Perhaps," suggested Admiral Yextar, "we should have offered them better terms." "Nonsense," Krathmer replied. "They are primitives playing at war. Our main fleet will crush them in days." The Council was about to learn that their greatest weakness was not military or technological. It was their complete inability to understand the species they had chosen to fight. The footage played on every screen across human space. Captain Steve Bennett's burned face looked directly into the camera as he spoke from his hospital bed. Behind him, through the window, rescue ships still searched the wreckage of New Horizon for survivors they would never find. "They came without warning," Steve said, his voice rough from smoke inhalation. 847 people. Families who came to the outer system looking for a better life. Scientists trying to unlock the secrets of the universe. Children who had never seen an alien ship before. He paused, his hands shaking slightly. The alien commander said they were demonstrating the cost of defying the Council. "They burned our children to make a point." The word spread across the colonies like wildfire. From the mining stations of the asteroid belt to the farming domes of Mars, humans watched the lone survivor tell his story. By the end of the week, "They burned our children" had become humanity's war cry. President Helen Carter knew the moment had come for humanity's response. She stood before the combined assembly of Earth and all the colonies. Representatives who had argued for months about trade disputes and territorial rights now sat in complete unity. "Citizens of Earth and the colonies," Helen began, her voice carrying to every human settlement in the solar system. "The Galactic Council has shown us their true nature. They do not seek equals or partners. They seek subjects and slaves." The assembly was silent, hanging on every word. "We have walked among the stars, not to kneel, but to stand as equals. If the Council demands servants, they will find warriors instead." Today, I formally reject their ultimatum. Humanity will fight. The cheers could be heard from Earth to the outer colonies. But, while humans celebrated their defiance, the Council was mobilizing for war. Chancellor Zextal stood in the council chamber, his scales shifting from gold to deep red with anger. The humans continue to defy us. This cannot be tolerated. Perhaps we were too subtle with our demonstration, suggested General Krathmer. A direct assault on their home world should end this quickly. Admiral Yextar nodded agreement. 3 battle fleets should be sufficient. The humans have perhaps 50 warships total. We will destroy their orbital defenses, occupy their major colonies, and force their surrender within 1 standard cycle. The Council's plan was simple and direct, just as Elena Ross had predicted. They would use overwhelming force in traditional space battles. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their technology centuries ahead of humanity's. What they didn't know was that Elena and her team had spent every day since first contact preparing for exactly this kind of attack. "Sir, we have contact," reported Lieutenant Danny Brooks from the sensor station aboard the Horizon's Edge. Commander Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral, studied the tactical display. 3 massive alien fleets were approaching human space. "How many ships?" Jake asked. "Approximately 300 vessels total, all larger than our biggest warships." Jake nodded calmly. "Signal all units. Operation Prometheus is now active." Deep in a hidden facility on the moon, Dr. Elena Ross activated her secret weapons. For months, her team had been building something the Council would never expect. Not bigger ships, but smarter ones. Captain Julie Mason sat in the pilot seat of the Ghost Runner, one of 50 stealth ships that had been built in complete secrecy. The ship was small, barely larger than a fighter, but it carried enough nuclear explosives to destroy a space station. "All Ghost units, this is Control," came Elena's voice over the secure channel. "Primary targets are Council command ships. Remember, they won't see you coming because they don't expect this kind of warfare." The Council fleets moved into human space with confidence. Admiral Yextar commanded the center fleet from his flagship Tides Dominion. The ship was massive, carrying thousands of crew members and enough firepower to destroy a moon. "Begin the assault," Yextar ordered. "Target their military installations first. We want them to surrender, not die fighting pointlessly." The first shots were fired by the Council fleet, massive energy beams that lit up space. They struck the outer defense platforms exactly as expected. The platforms exploded in brilliant flashes. "Human defenses are weaker than anticipated," reported the tactical officer. "Their platforms barely absorbed 1 shot." What the alien officer didn't know was that the platforms were decoys, designed to look important while hiding the real defenses. As the Council ships moved deeper into the system, Elena's trap closed around them. The Ghost Runner and 14 other stealth ships emerged from hiding among the asteroids. They were invisible to Council's sensors, moving silently toward their targets. Julie Mason watched her target grow larger on the screen. The alien command ship was beautiful in its own way, like a living sea creature made of metal and crystal. In a few minutes, it would be debrised. "Ghost 7 to all units," she whispered into her communicator. "Targets acquired. Beginning final approach." The Council knew of the human counterattack was when their flagship exploded. One moment Admiral Yextar was studying tactical displays, planning his next move. The next moment, alarms were screaming as massive explosions tore through his ship. "What happened?" he demanded, his watery form rippling with shock. "Unknown explosion in the command section," reported his aide. "We're losing power and life support." Across the 3 fleets, the same scene played out. Command ships that should have been untouchable suddenly erupted in nuclear fire. Communication arrays went silent. Formation leaders disappeared without warning. General Krathmer, commanding the 2nd Fleet, watched in horror as ship after ship vanished from his displays. "Where are the attacks coming from?" Our sensors show nothing. Sir, we're detecting small human vessels, reported as tactical officer. They appear to be unmanned and equipped with stealth technology. Impossible. The humans don't have stealth technology. They do now, sir. The Council's rigid command structure, built on thousands of years of traditional warfare, began to collapse. Fleet admirals tried to maintain formation, but without their command ships, subordinate captains didn't know what to do. Meanwhile, Helena's second surprise was just beginning. Lieutenant Kate Morgan sat in a secure bunker on Earth, her fingers flying over multiple keyboards. Around her, the best computer experts humanity had ever produced worked at their stations. Cyber attack phase 2 is active, Kate announced. We're inside their networks. The Council had made another mistake. Their technology was standardized across all member species. The same computer systems that controlled their ships also managed their supply lines, communication networks, and even civilian infrastructure. Kate's team had spent months studying, captured Council technology from the monitoring stations. Now they unleashed viruses and worms designed specifically for alien computer systems across Council space. Automated mining equipment suddenly stopped working. Trade routes got mysteriously rerouted to empty space. Military databases began feeding false information to their own forces. Worst of all, the Council's fleet coordination system started showing enemy ships that didn't exist while hiding real human vessels. Admiral Yexstar, now commanding from a backup vessel, tried to reorganize his scattered fleet. Form defensive positions around the gas giant. We'll make our stand there. But his orders never reached most of his ships. The communication network had been compromised. Some ships received orders to retreat. Others were told to advance. A few got instructions to attack their own allies. The careful, organized Council assault became chaos in a matter of hours. Jake Morrison watched the tactical display with growing amazement. Alina, how are we doing this? Elena's voice came through the communicator with a tired smile. We're fighting exactly like humans, Admiral. Dirty, unpredictable, and with complete disregard for how things are supposed to work. The Battle of Seoul lasted 3 days. When it ended, the Council had lost over half their fleet, not to superior firepower or advanced technology, but to tactics they had never encountered before. The survivors retreated in disorder, carrying news that would shake the Council to its foundation. The primitive humans had not only fought back, they had won. Chancellor Zextal received the reports with growing disbelief. How is this possible? They are a young species with inferior technology. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Veltar, quietly, we have underestimated them. The Chancellor's scales turned black with rage. Underestimated? They are primitives playing with toys. Mobilize the Grand Fleet. We will crush them properly this time. But word of the human victory was already spreading across the galaxy. For the first time in 10,000 years, someone had successfully defied the Council. Other subject species began to whisper about rebellion. On Earth, President Carter addressed the world again. Today we proved that technology alone does not determine the victor. Courage, creativity, and the refusal to surrender matter more than the size of your ships. The war was far from over. The Council's main forces had not yet been committed, but humanity had achieved something more valuable than military victory. They had shattered the myth of Council invincibility. Alina Ross stood in her command center, watching damaged reports and casualty lists. They had won the first battle, but she knew the Council would return with everything they had. What's our next move? Asked General Pete Clark. Alina smiled grimly. We taught them that we can defend ourselves. Now we teach them that we can take the fight to them. The galaxy was about to learn that awakening humanity's fury had consequences far beyond what the Council could imagine. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in their 10,000-year history. Chancellor Zextal's scales had remained black for days, a sign of deep anger among his people. Around the great chamber, the 12-member species argued with voices full of fear and rage. "How did a primitive species destroy 3 of our battle fleets?" demanded Counselor Vexron of the stone-like boulder people. "Our intelligence reports said they had no advanced weapons." General Krathmer's compound eyes focused on the tactical displays. "They used tactics we have never encountered. Small ships with no crew, attacking our command vessels directly. Computer attacks that turned our own systems against us." "Impossible," hissed Admiral Yekstar from his new command ship. "No species fights this way. It violates all accepted rules of civilized warfare." That was exactly the problem, though none of the council members understood it yet. They had become so used to fighting other civilized species that they had forgotten how to handle an enemy who didn't follow their rules. Chancellor Zexthal raised his clawed hand for silence. "Enough. We will mobilize the Grand Fleet. Every available ship, every reserve unit. The humans will face the full might of the Council." "Sir," interrupted Counselor Veltar of the Crystal Resonance people, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans have proven more resourceful than expected." The Chancellor's eyes glowed with fury. "Are you suggesting we negotiate with slaves? I'm suggesting that continuing this war may cost us more than we gain." Zextal's scales shifted to deep red. "The Council does not retreat from primitives. We will crush them, and their defeat will serve as an example to any other species that might consider defying us." While the Council argued, humanity was preparing for the next phase of the war. Alina Ross stood in the war room, studying star charts and intelligence reports. The victory at Sol had given them breathing room, but she knew it was only the beginning. "What's our status?" she asked General Pete Clark. "Better than expected. We've lost 30% of our conventional fleet, but the stealth ships performed beyond all projections. More importantly, our cyber warfare teams have established permanent access to Council networks." Lieutenant Kate Morgan looked up from her computer station. "We're inside their entire communication system now. We can read their messages, track their fleet movements, even access their supply computers. Any word on their next move." "They're mobilizing everything," Kate replied. "Over 2,000 ships converging on the Kepler sector. They plan to use it as a staging area for a massive assault on human space." Alina smiled grimly. "Then we'll hit them at Kepler before they're ready." Captain Ben Davis commanded the new stealth destroyer Shadow Strike. Unlike the small suicide ships used in the first battle, this vessel was designed for multiple missions. It carried a crew of 50 specialists trained in the kind of warfare the Council couldn't understand. "Target acquired," reported his tactical officer. "Council supply convoy, 12 ships, plus escorts." Ben studied the tactical display. The alien convoy was carrying ammunition and fuel to the gathering fleet at Kepler. Destroying it would hurt the Council's war effort, but Ben had a better idea. "Signal the Ghost Team," he ordered. "We're going to capture that convoy, not destroy it." This was another human innovation that confused the Council. Instead of simply destroying enemy assets, human forces often captured them. Alien crews who surrendered were treated well and eventually released. Captured ships were studied, reverse-engineered, and sometimes even used against their former owners. The Council's species, with their rigid hierarchies and honor codes, rarely surrendered. They preferred to die fighting rather than face the shame of capture. This meant they had never developed proper procedures for dealing with enemies who took prisoners. The attack on the convoy was swift and surgical. Human boarding parties, led by Colonel Amy Foster, swarmed aboard the alien ships before their crews could react. The close-quarters fighting that followed terrified the Council forces. Humans fought differently than any species the Council had encountered. They were aggressive, but not savage, tactical, but unpredictable. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to enjoy the chaos of close combat, while other civilized species found it horrifying. "Surrender, and you will not be harmed," Amy announced over the ship's communication system. Continue fighting, and we will take this ship anyway. The alien crew, a mix of Vorthok and Hive soldiers, had never heard such an offer before. In Council warfare, captured enemies were usually enslaved or executed. The concept of honorable surrender was foreign to them. When the convoy was secured, Ben's teams made an amazing discovery. The captured ships contained not just supplies, but detailed intelligence about Council fleet movements, tactical doctrines, and even political information about tensions between member species. Alina, you need to see this, Ben reported over the secure channel. We've got communication logs showing arguments between Council species. The Boulder people think this war is a mistake. The resonance crystals are worried about rebellion in their territory. Alina felt a surge of excitement. They're not as united as they pretend to be. This intelligence led to Elena's next operation, targeted strikes designed not just to hurt the Council militarily, but to increase political tensions between member species. Dr. Lisa Parker, now serving as a psychological warfare specialist, studied the captured communications. The Vorthok and the Hive species have been rivals for centuries, she reported. They're only cooperating because chancellors forced them to. What if we made that cooperation more difficult? Alina asked. Lisa smiled. I have some ideas. The next phase of human operations was subtle, but devastating. Kate Morgan's cyber warfare teams began altering Council communications, making it appear that different species were planning to betray each other. Captured Council supply ships were programmed to deliver the wrong materials to the wrong fleets, causing confusion and suspicion. Most effective of all, human forces began conducting false flag operations. Council ships that had been captured and repaired would attack other Council vessels, making it look like the member species were fighting among themselves. General Krathmer received reports of these incidents with growing paranoia. Fleet attacked our supply depot at Rigel, his aide reported. They claim it was the humans using captured ships, but our sensors detected authentic Vorthok energy signatures. Impossible, Krathmer clicked his mandibles nervously. Unless the humans have learned to perfectly duplicate our technology. Or, suggested his tactical officer carefully, the Vorthok are lying, as trust between Council species broke down. Their military coordination suffered. Fleet commanders began keeping reserves to defend against their own allies. Supply lines became inefficient as species hoarded resources for themselves. The planned assault on human space, which should have been launched within days, was delayed again and again as Council leaders argued over command structure and resource allocation. Meanwhile, human forces continued their unconventional campaign. Captain Julie Mason led a raid on a Council fortress ship, capturing not just the vessel but its entire senior command staff. The psychological impact was enormous. For the first time in their history, high-ranking Council officers were prisoners of a primitive species. The humans treated them according to what they called the Geneva Conventions, providing medical care, proper food, and protection from abuse. This confused the Council leadership more than any military defeat. How could primitive barbarians show more honor than civilized species? They are trying to corrupt our officers with kindness, declared Chancellor Zexthal when he learned of the prisoners' treatment. It is a psychological attack designed to weaken our resolve. But the reports from released prisoners told a different story. Humans fought fiercely, but showed mercy to the defeated. They were not the savage primitives the Council had expected. Admiral Yexstar, commanding the Grand Fleet Assembly at Kepler, found himself facing problems he had never encountered before. His supply lines were constantly under attack by invisible human ships. His communication networks were compromised. Worst of all, he couldn't trust the information he was receiving from his own allies. Sir, we're ready to launch the assault, his aide reported. Yexstar studied the tactical displays with growing doubt. His fleet was the largest ever assembled, but human hit-and-run attacks had reduced its effectiveness. Many of his ships were operating at partial capacity due to supply shortages. His officers were nervous and suspicious. "Delay the launch," he ordered. "We need to secure our supply lines first." It was another victory for human strategy. By forcing the Council to fight defensively, Elena's forces had taken the initiative away from an enemy that should have overwhelmed them with pure numbers. The war was far from over, but the Council was beginning to realize they had awakened something far more dangerous than a primitive species with crude weapons. They had challenged a species that thrived on adversity and grew stronger when cornered. In the Council chambers, Councillor Veltar spoke the words that none of them wanted to hear. "Perhaps we should have accepted their proposal for equal partnership, Chancellor." Zextal's roar of rage echoed through the chamber, but privately, he was beginning to have the same thought. The Council's arrogance had awakened humanity's fury, and now the galaxy would pay the price for that mistake. The humans had proven they could defend themselves. Soon, they would prove they could do much more than that. 6 months after the war began, the galaxy looked very different. The Council's mighty empire, built over 10,000 years, was cracking like ice in spring. Admiral Rick Hayes stood on the bridge of the Retribution, humanity's new flagship, and watched enemy vessels fleeing in all directions. "Sir, the Hive fleet is breaking formation," reported Captain Julie Mason from the tactical station. "They're abandoning the Boulder people entirely." Rick nodded grimly. "Signal all human units. Operation Retribution is proceeding as planned." The operation was Alina Ross's masterpiece. Instead of attacking the Council's military forces directly, human fleets had targeted the political bonds that held the Empire together. By exploiting the growing distrust between member species, humanity had turned the Council's greatest strength into its greatest weakness. "Admiral Hayes," came a transmission from the Shadow Strike. "This is Captain Ben Davis. We've captured the Council's main communication hub at Nexus Station. All their fleet coordination is now running through our computers." Rick smiled. Having control of enemy communications was like playing a card game where you could see everyone else's hand. "Understood, Captain. Begin Phase 3. Phase 3 was the final stroke. Using the captured communication network, human forces began issuing false orders to Council fleets. Ships were sent to defend systems that weren't under attack. Reinforcements were redirected away from real battles. Some Council units were even ordered to attack their own allies. Chancellor Zextal stood in his private chamber, watching reports of defeat stream across his displays. His scales had turned a dull gray, the color of despair among his people. The empire he had helped rule for decades was collapsing around him. "Sir," his aide entered nervously. "We have another priority transmission from the front lines." "More defeats?" Zextal asked wearily. "The Resonance Crystal people have withdrawn from the war completely. They're requesting separate peace talks with the humans." The Chancellor's claws scraped against the metal walls. "Traitors. After 10,000 years of Council unity, they abandon us for fear of primitives." But Zextal knew the truth. The Resonance people weren't traitors. They were realists who recognized that the Council had started a war they couldn't win. The breaking point came when Admiral Jake Morrison led the assault on the Council's most important stronghold, Fortress Prime, the massive station that served as the Council's military headquarters. The station was supposed to be impregnable, defended by the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Human forces attacked it anyway. "All units. This is Admiral Morrison," Jake announced over the fleet communications. "Remember what we're fighting for. Remember New Horizon. Remember the 847 innocent people who died because these aliens thought they could make us kneel." The assault was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships, now equipped with captured Council technology and improved by human engineering, swarmed around the fortress like angry wasps. They didn't try to destroy it with overwhelming firepower. Instead, they systematically dismantled its defenses, piece by piece. Colonel Amy Foster led the boarding action personally. Her Marines had trained for months in zero-gravity combat, something most Council species found difficult, as they fought their way through the station's corridors. The defending aliens discovered that humans were even more dangerous up close than at long range. "Surrender, and you will be treated with honor," Amy announced over the station's communication system. "Continue fighting, and we'll take this station anyway, but more of your people will die needlessly." The offer of honorable surrender was still foreign to most Council species, but word had spread about how humans treated prisoners. Unlike the Council, which often enslaved or executed captured enemies, humans followed strict rules about prisoner treatment. The station's commander, Admiral Kexalon of the aquatic depth species, faced an impossible choice. His forces were outnumbered and outfought. His communications were compromised. His political leaders were abandoning the war. For the first time in Council history, a fortress commander chose surrender over death. "This is Admiral Kexalon," came the transmission that would echo across the galaxy. "Fortress Prime surrenders to human forces. All Council personnel, lay down your weapons." The psychological impact was devastating. If the Council's most important military base could fall to human attack, nowhere was safe. More importantly, if a high-ranking Council officer could surrender with honor, perhaps the war itself was lost. Dr. Lisa Parker, now serving as a war correspondent, broadcast the surrender ceremony to human space and beyond. The sight of proud Council officers laying down their weapons to human Marines became one of the most famous images of the war. But what surprised many viewers was what happened next. The human forces didn't humiliate their defeated enemies or parade them as trophies. Instead, they provided medical care for the wounded, proper quarters for the prisoners, and respectful treatment for all captured personnel. "Why did they show mercy to their enemies?" asked one young Vorthok officer, captured during the fortress assault. "Because we're not your enemies," replied Amy Foster as she visited the prisoner quarters. "We're soldiers fighting a war that your leaders started. When this war ends, we'll all need to live in the same galaxy." This answer confused the young alien more than any human weapon or tactic. The Council had taught that enemies were to be crushed completely. The human approach of fighting fiercely but showing mercy was completely foreign to Council thinking. Word of human conduct and victory spread rapidly through Council space. Some species began to question whether their leaders had told them the truth about human savagery. Others wondered if the Council's way of ruling through fear and intimidation was really the best approach. The final blow came when the Boulder people, one of the Council's founding members, announced their withdrawal from the war. Their leader, Councillor Vexron, delivered a speech that shattered what remained of Council unity. "We have fought beside our Council allies for thousands of years," Vexron declared. "But this war was begun in arrogance and continued in folly. The humans offered partnership. We responded with threats of slavery. Now we face the consequences of our pride." Within days, 4 more Council species announced their intention to seek separate peace with humanity. The Grand Alliance that had ruled the galaxy was dissolving before everyone's eyes. Chancellor Zexthal made one final attempt to rally his remaining allies. "These humans are still primitives," he argued before the dwindling Council assembly. "They may have won battles through treachery and luck, but they cannot govern a galaxy. Without our guidance, civilization will collapse into chaos." Councillor Velter of the Resonance. People responded with words that would become famous throughout the galaxy. "Perhaps it's time we learned that there are different ways to bring order to the stars. The humans have shown mercy to their enemies and honor to their prisoners. When did we last do the same?" The end came not with a massive battle, but with a simple transmission. President Helen Carter, speaking from Earth, addressed the galaxy directly. "To all peoples of the Council space," she began, "humanity offers peace to any who want it. We seek neither conquest nor revenge. We ask only for the same right we demanded. from the beginning, the right to determine our own destiny. She paused, looking directly into the camera. The age of councils deciding the fate of species without their consent is over. Humanity offers partnership to all who seek it, but we will never again allow anyone to mistake our desire for peace as weakness. Chancellor Zexthal watched the transmission from his empty command center. Most of his staff had already fled. His empire was gone, his power broken. He faced trial charges from his own people for leading them into disaster. "What have we done?" he whispered to himself. The answer came from his only remaining aide, a young Vorthok officer who had watched the war unfold. "We awakened something we didn't understand, sir. We thought strength meant the ability to dominate others. They showed us that real strength means the ability to stand as equals." The war officially ended when the last council stronghold surrendered without a fight, but the real victory had come earlier, when humanity proved that a species could reject submission without becoming conquerors themselves. Admiral Jake Morrison, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood in the same chamber where humanity had first been offered slavery. But this time, representatives from across the galaxy had come to hear humanity's terms for peace. "We propose the creation of an interspecies cooperative," Jake announced. "A voluntary alliance based on mutual respect rather than dominance. No species will be forced to join. No species will be classified as inferior. All members will have equal voice in decisions that affect them." The proposal was revolutionary. For the first time in galactic history, an organization would be based on cooperation rather than conquest. Many species joined immediately. Others chose to remain independent, but signed trade and defense agreements. A few, bitter over their defeat, withdrew from galactic politics entirely, but the principle was established. No species had the right to determine another species' destiny. Years later, Commander Jake Morrison, now an elder statesman, stood before a gathering of young human officers. They had asked him to explain how humanity had defeated an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years. "We didn't defeat them with superior weapons or numbers," Jake explained. "We defeated them by refusing to accept that might makes right. The Council's greatest weakness wasn't military or technological. It was their complete inability to understand a species that would choose freedom over safety, dignity over survival." He looked out at the young faces before him. The galaxy learned that humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our numbers. It was our refusal to accept that anyone has the right to decide our destiny for us. The lesson spread far beyond humanity. Across the galaxy, species that had lived under council rule for millennia began to assert their own independence. The empire that had seemed eternal proved to be nothing more than the combined fear of its subjects. In the end, the council's arrogance had indeed awakened humanity's fury, but that fury had transformed the galaxy in ways the council could never have imagined. The age of empires built on submission was over. The age of cooperation among equals had begun, and it all started because one species had the courage to say no to those who demanded they kneel.